You're listening to the Generational Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate podcast. Your host, Will Smith, is a former NFL player that found his passion in commercial real estate. Every week, you will learn from industry experts everything you need to know to get started investing in commercial real estate to build generational wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to the Generational Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate Show. It's your host, Will Smith, and I'm here today with John Casmon, the myth, the legend. I got him here today, y'all. So there's going to be a really, really good episode. But before we get into the show, if you're watching the show for the first time, do me a favor and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you've been watching this for some time now and you just haven't left a review, leave me a review. These reviews are how I keep bringing on rock star guests like I have today. All right. So housekeeping is out of the way. John Casmon has helped John Casmon has helped everyday professionals invest in $90 million worth of apartments. In addition to that, he's helped investors leverage marketing to find deals and raise money. He is the host of the Multifamily and Marketing Show, Target Market Insights. So if you haven't, subscribed to his podcast, go ahead and do that now. But John, man, we appreciate you coming on the show today. Tell us a little bit about, who you are and how you got into real estate, because that was a very, very fast bio.
Yeah, absolutely. Will, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show, man. I'm excited to talk to you. We've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit through social media and just kind of run in similar circles. So it's a pleasure to actually see your face today and be able to talk and join your audience. I got to reiterate what you said before we jump into my story. If you're listening to this show, if you're getting good value, this stuff is free, man.
Right.
I mean, y'all know that it's a lot of ways to go out, learn about real estate investing. A lot of things cost money. This is not free for Will to create and produce. This takes time, energy, money, effort. The only thing that he's asking in return is just leave him that rating, that review, subscribe to this podcast. So take a minute and do it. I know it sounds like just some random request, but it helps. It helps us to demonstrate the validity, the information, the quality. So just take a minute. If you're getting good value, if you appreciate, what you're getting out of this show, take 1 minute and leave a 5-star rating and review and hit the subscribe button. It really does help every podcaster. It's not like we charging. It's not like we can make money through other means. So leave that review, leave that rating, subscribe to the show. It really helps. All right. Now you asked about my story. I'm gonna keep it top line. I come from kind of a blue collar family, the first person in my family to go to college, first one to graduate from college. And I went into marketing. I fell in love with just understanding communications, marketing, brand strategy, kind of all of that stuff. So I'm a corporate America guy, worked in business, corporate America, and I worked at, large companies like General Motors, and I worked at small to medium companies like advertising agencies.
Right.
And the big thing for me is while I was working in the automotive industry on the advertising side, I was at GM. We went into bankruptcy, as everybody knows, or most people know.
Right.
And I distinctly remember a day in particular where I was at my desk. I knew we were doing layoffs that day. I came in late. I came in as late as I could without getting in trouble. And I didn't want to be there. I just didn't want to see any of the carnage. And I was told that I was safe not to worry about it. But I walked into the office and it was quiet. It was a somber day, man. I mean, nobody was talking. And I got to my office. My cubicle. I didn't have a real office. I had a cubicle. And on my phone, there's a red light blinking, that voice message. And I was like, oh, man.
Right.
And I was just terrified of what was on that message, right? So I pick it up. After about 15 seconds, 20 seconds, I pick it up, listen. And it's the guy who used to sit in front of me. And he had been let go, unfortunately. And he was distraught. I mean, just imagine the emotion of spending your life working for a company, 22 years. He was like my father. He believed you got a job, you worked it until they got you your gold watch, your 30 years, your pension, your retirement. That was the path he was on.
Right.
He was 8 years out from getting his gold watch and his pension and all of that.
Yeah.
And it was taken away from him, unbeknownst to him. And he was pretty much blindsided by it. And I remember 2 things happened to me that day. One, I felt an extreme amount of empathy for what he and his family was going through. But for myself, I said, you know what? Even though this is a big company that's too big to fail from a lot of people's perspective, it's not guaranteed. And it wasn't just his story. I mean, I watched other executives who weren't let go, but, they got reassigned to Shanghai. It's like, yo, you got a teenager and you got reassigned to the other half of the world.
Right.
Like, could you imagine taking your 15-year-old and saying, hey, we moving to China?
Right.
Like, I just looked at all of that, and some of it wasn't as drastic, but the bottom line is you're a pawn. In corporate America, you are a pawn on this big chessboard. And if they need somebody right there, they're gonna move somebody right there, and it might be you.
Yeah.
If they lose this piece, then they gotta lose a piece. And it's just the reality. I went to this
Right.
board where they have every employee in our division, who was the vehicle service sales and marketing division, they had everybody's name on the board. I saw my name. They had little stars and numbers next to everybody's name with their levels. And I was like, yo, we really are just chess pieces.
Right.
And I say all that to just say this. And you know this from playing sports, right? You
Yep.
know this.
Oh, yeah.
You are a member of a team, but it's never about you. It's about the team. And that reality hit me so hard that day, where I realized it wasn't a matter about how good I was. It wasn't about just keep your head down and do good work. Man,
Yeah.
they was going to make the decisions that worked for them. And I needed
Right.
to make the decisions that protected me and my family. And that's when I turned my attention to real estate and started to set out on a plan to help me build a portfolio.
Man, that's a great story, and I imagine a lot of people can relate to that, man. And like you said, when I was playing in the NFL, man, it was you was literally just a number. Like, what have you done for me lately? And if you didn't, if your piece wasn't moving like it was supposed to, you was gone. And man, that's the case for a lot of people, man. So I appreciate you sharing that. So, you got to the point right there. You said, okay, I want to take control of my own future. And you said, all right, I'm going to get into real estate. Or did you say real estate? What was it at first that you looked at and said, okay, this is the move I want to make?
Yeah, man. Like, look, like a lot of your listeners, there was a little purple book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, that helped me gain clarity. And
Right.
it wasn't until that moment that that book really crystallized and came full surface, or full circle. I read it years earlier.
Right.
And I got it conceptually, and it helped me understand like money and how, money for time and all of that works, right?
Right. Right.
But in that moment, it just became real. And I was like, oh, okay, this can be taken away like at any moment.
Right.
So real estate was the thing that, quite frankly, you don't have to be a genius to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think I was going to be the guy that built the next tech app or the stock market was a little too complex for me, man. I
Yeah.
just couldn't quite figure it out. But real
Right.
estate is pretty, at its core, it's about housing, supply and demand. You buy for X, you make this amount of rental income, your expenses are this, and whatever's left over, you keep as profit, right? So I'm like, look, if you can do third grade math,
Right.
you can invest in real estate. Now,
Right.
obviously, it's more complex than that, but at its
Yeah.
core, it's really about basic math. So I felt like, look, I can do this. So I started off with that as my focus. Not to mention, there's that quote that about 90% of the richest people in America make their wealth in real estate, or at least hold some
Right.
portion of real estate in their portfolio. So to me, this was the simplest approach, was just
Right.
investing in real estate. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna do real estate and be financially independent and go, leave my W-2. It was just like, look, man, you probably need to invest in something, and real estate seems like the most logical thing to figure out. So I
Right.
started with that. I didn't start right away because I was still in Detroit, and at the time, I was still very concerned with the market. I mean, this is 2010,
Yeah.
2009, 2010,
Right.
buying in Detroit when everything around me was basically burning down in the sense of values. I mean, the people I knew who owned real estate in Detroit were doing fire sales to escape.
Right.
So nothing sparked to me like, yo, man, this is a great time to invest. Like, dude, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was focused on moving. So I actually left and I moved to Chicago a year later, and went to an advertising agency. And then once I got there, that's when I started to invest. I started with a 2-unit building, bought a 3-unit, and then an 8-unit building. And I know a lot of your listeners are trying to figure out how do they get started building their own portfolio. And I think
Right.
there are 3 ways to go about that. You can take the approach that I took, but there are 2 other ways that, looking back, I think would have been just as viable with the information I have now. And we can get into that in a little bit here.
Yep. Okay, man, that's cool. So the really good point that you made there was, at the time you was in Detroit, and the basically the market was declining there. So you knew enough about real estate not to buy in the declining market. So that was a good deal there. So then you moved to Chicago. Was it the market that you liked about Chicago as well that made you take that job position? Because I imagine you probably had, multiple positions open. Was it like a strategic move to move there, or is it just, hey, this is a job and I'm gonna just find opportunities in whatever market I get into?
No, no, absolutely. It was very strategic to move to Chicago. Chicago is one of those cities that I always really wanted to live in. If you're in the Midwest, you grew up in the Midwest. Well, Chicago's the mecca of the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a Midwest kid, born and raised in Cleveland. I live in Cincinnati now. I lived in Detroit. I lived in Dayton. And Chicago was a place where you had all the things you could want in a big city. As far as the nightlife, restaurants, just
Right.
all of those kind of things. So
Right.
I think I was always intrigued by that. But also, I knew enough about economics, in particular working in Detroit, which was heavily driven by the automotive industry, where
Yeah.
I knew that Chicago was more diverse as far as this industry, right? So you had some packaged goods company, you had some financial services, you had different kind of industries. So I
Yeah.
wasn't worried about the entire city economics collapsing like it happened in Detroit. Vegas is a
Right.
city that I think has a lot of those same kind of concerns, right? With so much
Yeah.
based on tourism, where it's like, hey, if one thing bad happens with tourism, it can really have a major impact on the market economy. And that's what we saw in Detroit. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you worked at a bank or a grocery store, you were impacted, even if it
Yeah.
felt like there was no logical reason. But if
Right.
if most people make their money on one industry, it has a trickle down effect on everyone
Yeah.
because a lot of people aren't able to spend money or people are losing jobs, property values drop. So I knew enough about investing in economics to know that, hey, I wanted to be in a market where it was more industry diversified
Yeah.
so that I could really just focus on the sub markets, right? Where I could find good smaller markets and
Yeah.
invest in those areas.
Got you. Got you. So let's talk about how you went out and you found that first opportunity. You said the first one was a duplex, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how did you find it? What did you go to a broker? Would you just drop them for dollars? Like, how did you find that first deal?
Yeah, well, listen, man, education is the biggest thing you can do. And anyone listening to our conversation, this is really one of the first steps, right? It's educating yourself, it's putting yourself in a position to just take in knowledge, to consume from people that have lived it, that have done it, that have experienced it. But the most important thing you can do is listen and implement what they're saying.
Right.
Now, you're going to get to a point where it's like, all right, I've listened to X amount of podcasts. I've read X amount of books. I've gone to X amount of events, meetups, Zooms, whatever, right? It's time to take action, man. Nothing's
Right.
going to happen until you take action. So after consuming, as much information as I could, we started with the house hack, we being my wife and I,
Yeah.
and we bought a 2 unit building, lived in one unit, rented out the other. We did use an agent to kind of assist us in finding a property.
Yep.
But at that time in the market, to be honest with you, we had a lot of options because we were still kind of at the bottom of the market. So I had a list of like 10 properties
Yeah.
and we figured out which ones we liked, which ones we didn't like. And what ended up happening is I remember very clearly, it was like late January 2012. And we had a list of 10 properties. And after one weekend, three of them were under contract.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, up to that point, by the way, no movement at all.
Yeah.
We were just looking and we was taking our sweet time.
Right.
Well, we found another four properties. So now we had a list of 11. The next weekend, four of them under contract. So now we back down to seven.
Right.
And a couple of days later, that list goes from 7 to 5. And we're like, okay, this is starting to pick up. We need to
Yeah.
actually make some decisions and go. And that following weekend, we went to go put in to see a property that came up. And it came up late Friday night. I called my agent immediately. I'm like, hey, this came up 7 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I need us in there first thing in the morning. Matter of fact, can we go tonight? And he
Right.
was like, dude, like I'm at dinner. I'm like, I don't care, man. You see how this is going. So he
Right.
calls and gets us an appointment for like 10 a.m. I kid you not, we get there at 9:45 and I see somebody walking out with papers in their hand. And
Mm.
I'm like, yo, I hope they did not get this thing under contract.
Right.
And sure enough, they got into
Wow.
contract right before. So that day,
Wow.
my wife and I said, look, we just need to pick the next one that's on our list. Because
Yeah.
the other thing that I'm not telling you is that because we were going to house hack,
Yeah.
we decided not to renew our apartment lease. So we
Mhm.
were about to get kicked out.
Oh wow.
So I had about 60
Man.
days to figure out where I was going to live.
Wow.
And I tried to call my landlord and say, hey, man, can we get an extension? He was like, hey, that's cool. And then I guess he talked to his wife and he called me back like, yeah, actually, no, that's not going to work because my wife's pregnant and she's not trying to deal with this. And
Right.
y'all going to have to leave. And I was like, oh, man. So the
Dang.
pressure got real. So we at
Right.
that point said, look, we went back, we looked at all the houses that were still on our list. We picked the one we liked the most. We put in an offer, got under contract, closed, and that really kicked things off for us.
Oh man, no, that's a great story, man. And that's what I tell most people that I talk with. Just like if you're trying to get that first one done, house hacking is a great way to go because you get to use residential financing on it. So, did you guys use a FHA loan on it?
Yeah, we did, man. It's crazy. We bought a property for $360,000 with 3.5% down, and I got like $10,000 in seller credits. So we
Wow.
came out of pocket like $7,000 or something like that.
Wow. Yeah. See that's insane, man. And the listeners, take those notes. House hacking is a great way to go, especially if you can find a duplex, triplex. You can go all the way up to a quadplex. So, be paying attention to your market. Now, the one thing that I want to mention here is it sounded like your market was transitioning from a buyer's market to a seller's market because they started selling, kind of rapidly after you started looking. And across most of the U.S. right now, we're in the seller's market. So, if you're looking, don't be playing around. Just go ahead and jump on it because these things don't last long.
Yeah, we had the benefit, man. I mean, listen, a good chunk of success is timing,
Right.
and it takes effort to be lucky. And if you line up, if you were to go back and look at the historicals, essentially what happened, we were at the bottom of the market, and it was starting to go back up, right? If you go
Right.
back to January, February 2012, and you
Yeah.
look at the charts, that's where it was at the bottom, and it started to go up, and it literally, I watched it. I mean, I was sitting there like, okay, we got to
Right.
move. Like this
Right.
is
Right.
picking up, and that's what happened to the effect that 2 years later, partially by the renovations we made, partially because we picked a great neighborhood, and partially because the overall economics had just picked up, we had created a ton of equity in that property, and that gave us the ability to refinance, pull out 6 figures worth of equity, and
Wow.
go out and acquire another apartment, a commercial apartment building. So that right there is great for us, but a lot of that is timing and understanding the market. So
Yeah.
to your point, if it's a buyer's market, you have power, you have flexibility, you can push your terms. I mean, I negotiated that seller credit. In
Yeah.
a seller's market, you got to be more aggressive in your offer, not
Right.
necessarily saying you want to overpay, but I'm saying that you want to move quickly and expeditiously
Yeah.
and demonstrate that you're serious and ready to close.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Now, before we jump into the next deal you did, let's talk about picking neighborhoods because we always talk about choosing markets, but how you choose actual sub markets, sub neighborhoods. Like, let's talk about how to find a winning neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I launched my show, Target Market Insights, and I launched that podcast, I did it pretty much with the goal of figuring out how to find the best places to invest.
Right.
I was making a transition from investing in Chicago neighborhoods where every property I bought was in a different neighborhood, and I had to
Yeah.
relearn that neighborhood versus the neighborhoods I had invested in before. And
Right.
then I started to look at Cincinnati and other markets, and now I was trying to learn a different market and figure out those neighborhoods. So I
Right.
spent a lot of time trying to learn it because a lot of my early success was based on picking the right neighborhoods and finding the path of progress. So there are a lot of things that you can do, but I'll make this kind of easy for your listeners and I'll give 3 tips. If
Yep.
anyone is interested, I do have a download available. I can share it, but it's 21 hacks to find the best submarkets in any market.
Yep.
But one thing you want to look at is you want to find the path of progress. So what developments are taking place, right? You want to look for new construction. You want to look long major infrastructure. So if there are highways, if there is like in a city like Chicago, you have your
Yeah.
trains, right?
Right.
So the trains, they're buses to an extent, but airports, anything like that where there's major infrastructure development. And
Yeah.
then you want to find point A and point B of those attractions, right? So if it's I'll use Chicago, if it's along I-90 or something like that, or 94, you want to pick the freeway, and then you want to look and see like, hey, are they building a new park, or are they redoing the exit? Or if you're near the trains, are they adding a train stop somewhere? Is there a
Yeah.
university, or what are the anchors, right?
Right.
Find those anchors and then make sure you're somewhere along that path.
Yeah.
So, because there's always a cutoff, right? You don't want to
Right.
go so far that you're not outside of it. So you got to figure out where's point A, where's point B, what's driving it, why would someone want to live here and go there. Okay. So that's the first one, is find the path of progress,
Yep.
look for that infrastructure and invest alongside of that. Second thing you can do, a lot of times you'll hear people talk about an A class neighborhood or B
Yeah.
class neighborhood or C class neighborhood.
Right.
And if you're starting out, it's really hard to figure out what in the heck those really are.
Right.
So I'll give you two little cheat codes that I use. Now, this isn't technical definition. This is my short code. So I'm just
Yeah.
sharing what I do. Okay. One thing you want to do is look at the restaurants. Okay. Look at the restaurants in an area, particularly the fast food options. If you're in a place where there's a McDonald's and there's a chicken spot, call it a Lee's or a Popeyes or something like that, right?
Right.
If you have those kind of things, you're probably in more of a C plus type location. Okay.
Yeah.
If that's it,
Right.
if you have more of an Arby's and maybe a Panera or Starbucks,
Right.
things like that. Now you're looking at more of a B class neighborhood, because they're only going to put Starbucks in more
Yeah.
B class neighborhoods. People are willing to pay $5 for
Right.
a thing of coffee. Okay,
Yep.
and then if you don't have any of those like fast food restaurants really, but it's really all like higher end stuff, or you have the Whole Foods, you have your Trader Joe's, you have more boutique or those kind of restaurants as far as the quick food options. There's a good chance that may be an A class location. Now, I
Yeah.
wouldn't just go off of the restaurants. I would pair that with either household income or schools or something else, just to make sure, because obviously you don't get to
Yeah.
be McDonald's without putting locations everywhere.
Right.
But
Right.
you want to get a sense of like, hey, what kind of restaurants are here? Are
Yeah.
these just quick, low quality foods? Or is there a mix of, some higher end stuff, some higher price point stuff? Or is it just, high quality,
Right.
pretty expensive, quick restaurants, right? So
Yeah.
that's your way to gauge a neighborhood. So I would use that to pick the submarket as well. And then the last tip, the third tip that I would use is I would pay attention to the big employers or the big drivers. So are you near a university? Are you near a big company? Are you close to a train stop? Are you close to anything like
Yeah.
nightlife, restaurants, right? What's the driver for that area? Is it the beach? Is it, whatever?
Yeah.
What's going to make people want to live there? Put yourself in a resident's shoes. If you were looking for a place to live, why would you pick this neighborhood? Now, what I would do, and here's a really good secret, instead of picking that location that's super hot and super ideal, look for adjacent neighborhoods that have similar characteristics. To
Yeah.
give you a sense of what I'm talking about, there's a neighborhood in Chicago where I really wanted to invest in. And the challenge was the area itself, the numbers didn't work out. The
Right.
rents didn't match what people were selling it for. I couldn't make the kind of cash flow I was hoping. But there was a neighborhood just next to it that the numbers did work a little bit better. It was still close to the trains. It
Right.
was still close to nightlife. They still had some restaurants and grocery stores there. So I invested in that area because guess what? That's the same thing residents are going to do. You want to live in Logan Square
Yeah.
in Chicago, just pick a neighborhood. But man, maybe you don't want to spend $1,500 in rent. Maybe your
Right.
budget's $1,200 or $1,300 in rent. So they move over to the neighborhood right next to it,
Yeah.
save $200, get a lot of the same amenities,
Right.
but they got value. As investors, we have to do the same thing because guess what? That neighborhood next to it is going to blow up just like that because all of the residents are going to do the same thing. So
Yeah.
at a certain point, the value in that area is going to go up. Demand's going to go up. So you
Right.
want to move just outside of that core. That way you can get there before the buzz gets there. You really
Right.
just want to beat the other investors, but pay attention to what residents are doing. If they get priced out of the neighborhood they really want to be in, where do they go? And invest in those areas.
Yeah. Man, I gotta tell you, that might have been the best 5 minutes that this show has ever had, man, as far as gold nuggets and value. Like, dude, I'm going to listen to that about 10 times to make sure I get all of that down, man. That was some good stuff, bro. For real.
Oh, thank you, man.
Good deal. All right, man. So let's talk about that next deal you did. You refinanced the duplex because there was so much value in it. And then what did you do next?
Well, here's where I was at. I was at a dilemma, and many of your listeners may be in a similar dilemma. All right, we were doing well. I felt like I was finding deals. I had bought a 2 unit, I bought a 3 unit, and I refinanced that first deal. So I started talking to a lot of people before I did the next deal. I started talking to a lot of investors, and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm enjoying this. I'm finding deals. I'm seeing the results, right? I just made 6 figures. So I'm stoked, dude. I'm excited, right? I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm supposed to do."
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to stretch it out because I was still using all of my money. I was saving every dollar to go out and invest. And the reality was it wasn't sustainable because if I didn't have the capital, I couldn't go buy a deal. And I don't care what you're doing. If you are building your own portfolio, you're going to run out of money. I don't care if you've got $10 million. At some point, you're going to run out of money. That's just how the game is set up. So you have to ask yourself a question. Are you just going to wait until you have more money? Or are you going to put yourself in a position to work with other people and raise capital to go out and keep doing deals? I was very hesitant to work with other investors. I just, I had some limiting beliefs, like a lot of people have. I'd done a couple of deals, but I certainly wasn't a real estate expert. I certainly wasn't a guru. I just, did a couple deals, and some of it was timing. Some of it was the market information, market research that I had from my background and understanding how to look at these things. But ultimately, I decided, listen, if I really want to do this, I'm going to have to work with other people, because if your goals don't include working with other people or building out your team or having other people help you, your goals are too small.
Yeah.
So when I came to that realization, I said, okay, instead of saying that I can't do this because of XYZ, let's figure out what it would take for me to do this. How can I go out and buy a $5 million property? How can I go out and raise money to do real estate deals?
Yeah.
How can I stop saving $100,000 at a time to go buy a property by myself? And how can I put myself in a position where I can just find good deals, have the capital available, or at least be able to go get the capital and go out and keep moving versus waiting a year for me to save up money and then go and look to see what's available. And at that moment, I realized that, working with other people, when you're working with other people, it's really important to make sure you've got a team behind you. I think there are 3 C's when it comes to raising capital. The first one is going to be confidence. That's going to be your preparation, right? How much education do you have? How much practice, are you putting in, whether it be underwriting deals, communicating, the opportunity and just understanding what people are looking for and serving other people in that capacity. The second C is going to be your credibility, right? So that's going to come from your own experience. And if you have limited experience, well, you need to build a team that has the kind of experience that would make people feel comfortable. And it's not just for, the image or the illusion. You want to have a team that truly can help you make the right decisions at any given moment in time based on their collective expertise. So if you only have a couple of years experience, or maybe you have no experience, you want a property manager, a partner, a coach, a mentor. You want people on your team that bring that credibility to the table. So when you go out and talk to other people, other investors, they feel comfortable that you've established a great team to win. I mean, we'll go back to your football playing days, right? Listen, if you might have a tight end who's not a good blocker, you might have somebody who's not that great. Okay, you need to have somebody else along the line who's a pretty good blocker who can support this guy, right?
Yeah.
If you got a great running back, that could help the passing game. So it's the same kind of thing. We're building a team. It's not about you as the individual by yourself. It's more about the collective team that you could bring to the table. So credibility is key. And then the third is going to be your connections, right? If you're going with friends and family, you're going to be limited there because friends and family are not your charity case. They're not there to help you do what you want to do. They're your friends. They're your family. So you need to be able to connect with people who are looking for the products, the services that you are going to be offering. And your friends and family are a great place to start. But I would advise people to find the people who really want your help. You don't want to feel like you're doing like some three-tiered, marketing,
Right.
multi-level marketing scheme
Yeah.
where you try to get
Yeah.
everybody together and say, hey guys, I got a great opportunity. No,
Right.
man. You know, you want to find the people who are really looking to diversify their income,
Yeah.
pay less in taxes, and get into the real estate game, because that's going to make your value proposition much stronger versus trying to convince your auntie to invest, some money in your next deal. So the
Yeah.
connections are the third thing that it really takes to build a strong portfolio.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it really does. Um, so you got to a point where you refinanced that one. You had some money that was there, and you educate yourself to figure out what was going to be the next move. So did you jump into a syndication at this point, or did you take down another deal by yourself? I mean, what was the next thing? Because there's going to be people that do exactly what you did, or they may be there right now and like, man, I got this money now. What the heck do I need to do? So talk to that person
Yeah,
right here.
yeah. So I'm going to answer your question, but I want to tell it from, if I could go back and talk to John
Right,
at that moment.
right.
I wish I had a broader perspective, because I was like laser focused, right?
Right,
And
right.
I kind of missed the options that were on the table. So at that moment, there were really three options. And anybody who's looking to start or scale your real estate portfolio, there are three ways you can go about it. Okay. One is the solo route, continuing to build, take the money that you're making and reinvest it into real estate. Whether it's your first deal or your 10th deal, the
Yeah.
solo route is one of the ways there, right? So I could have done that. And that was actually the next move I made. I bought an 8-unit building using my own money, using the money
Yeah.
actually from the refinance, or the line of equity.
Right.
I invested into an 8-unit deal. Now, I did that specifically because I wanted to gain more experience with a commercial property. So this was my first commercial real estate property. I wanted to gain experience managing the property management company. So I felt like that would make it,
Right.
easier for me to talk to other people in the future, like,
Right.
because I had managed all my own units up to that point. So I wanted some
Yeah.
experience managing the manager. And the third thing was, I knew that this was going to be kind of the last one I did by myself. So I'm like, hey, if I can have this experience, then when I go talk to people, I come across as more credible, and it's going to make me more confident. And ultimately, if I'm not confident, none of this is going to matter.
Right.
I needed it for my own confidence. The very next thing, so that was in November. The next month, I met the person who ended up becoming my mentor. So if I could go back to John before he did that deal,
Yeah.
I would have said, hey, listen, you need to build the team, because what I was missing was the confidence and credibility. I felt like I needed to go get that by myself.
Yeah.
What I wish I would have known was, hey, you can build a team, including hiring a coach or a mentor that can help you figure out where the landmines are, figure out, how to go about this business, and that can make it a little bit easier for you. So I ended up hiring a coach the next month. So that's
Yeah.
something I would have done. On the practical investing side, the other two options are this: one, partnering with other people. So I had some money, I had some connections, and if I could have found somebody who had a little bit more experience than me, partnering with someone, whether it be a JV partnership or coming on as general partners together, that
Yeah.
would have been an ideal way to go about it. So that's actually what we did on the next deal. We did 192 units. We
Nice.
came in as general partners, and we supported a group. I didn't take on the lead. I don't want to misconstrue it. There was another partner that was the lead partner. I
Right.
came in more of a supporting role, helping out with some of the marketing functions, bringing some capital, managing investor relations, things like that.
Yep.
But I came in as a general partner. So that's the second option that I would tell John back then to do. And if you guys want to put yourself as John back then, please do. So John, or you, that's your second option,
Right.
is to be open-minded to partnering with other people. I was very close-minded. If you would have asked me to partner with somebody else back then, I would be like, nope, you crazy. I got to do
Right.
this all by myself.
Right.
I did not drink the Kool-Aid of this being a team sport. I
Yeah.
felt like it was all about me, and not in a selfish sense, but just like I wasn't comfortable being responsible for other people or having them be responsible for me and my actions. I
Right.
wanted to do it by myself. And that was the biggest mistake that I could have made. You cannot be a great commercial real estate investor by yourself.
Yeah.
If that's your goal, you are going to fail, or you're
Right.
going to go so slowly that you're not going to have the impact that you ultimately want with your goals. The third thing, and another very viable option,
Yeah.
and many of your listeners should take this as great advice: invest passively. invest as a passive investor in a larger deal. The
Yeah.
reason this is so viable is I was ultimately trying to build the confidence and the credibility to do larger deals, to work with investors. And let me ask you a question. Do you think it's more credible for me to say, hey, I have an 8 unit building by myself, or as I'm trying to talk to other investors about
Yeah.
maybe working with me, or to say, hey, I'm an investor in a 100 unit building. And if there's another opportunity to bring on investors in a deal like this, would you be interested?
Right.
Right? I mean, I'm sharing what I'm doing. Just like if I right now everybody's raving about Bitcoin or Tesla, these
Yeah.
stocks, right? If you're
Yeah.
making money over there, you're sharing that because you're excited.
Right.
I'm not raising money. I'm not telling you, hey man, come invest with me. I'm sharing what I'm doing because I'm excited that it's working, right?
Yeah.
And I'm excited about the benefits I'm getting. So if I were to share what I'm doing, if I say, hey, Will, man, I just reduced my taxes by like 25%, invest in this apartment deal, man, I'm getting an 8% return, and I'm probably going to double my money over 5 years. If I
Yeah.
were to share something like that with you and say, yeah, man, if there's another opportunity, do you want me to keep you in mind or you want to learn more about it? Like, whoa, right? I basically said, here's what I'm doing. Do
Yeah.
you want to do it too?
Right.
Versus, hey, I'm the expert. I got an
Right.
8 unit. I'm an expert at,
Right.
like, now you're putting all your faith and confidence in me versus the team and the process. So it's a
Right.
little bit of a nuance, but I think that it's more natural. So if you want to be active, I would say you got 3 ways: you go solo, you go to partner or JV route, or you can invest passively and then use that experience. Because guess what? You're going to learn. Even
Yeah.
as a passive investor, you're going to figure out what you like, what you don't like. You're going to have real credible experience. You can ask
Yeah.
questions of your operators. Hey, why'd you guys do it like this?
Right.
Walk me through this process. Like, you're going to learn.
Yeah.
So you can take that. And then I would still say it's a team sport. So I wouldn't say just because you invested passively, go out
Right.
and do your own deal. You need to build a team that has the experience being operators and being
Yeah.
on the active side. But I think it's going to be more natural and an easier transition to do it that way. So I think those are the 3 ways I would suggest anyone to look at it. If you are serious about leading your own deals, build a team, including getting a coach or a mentor
Yeah.
that can help you with that.
Yeah. No, that's all great advice, man. It's really good stuff there. Now let's talk about your organization, man. What markets are you guys focusing on right now as far as trying to find opportunities?
Yeah, man. Listen, we love the Midwest and Southeast region. So we have two verticals in the way we operate. And essentially, we're always trying to provide opportunities for our investors. So we love the Midwest. So those are going to be growing markets in the Midwest. It's not just a blanket Midwest statement, but we
Yeah.
love markets like Indianapolis, Columbus, Louisville. Cincinnati is a little bit more of a stable market than growth, but we
Yeah.
love the stability of it. It is seeing some population growth, so
Yeah.
we like that market a lot. Outside of that, we also like the southeast region markets, the Carolinas, where you reside.
Yep.
Texas is less southeast, but Texas,
Right.
Florida, Georgia to an extent. So we do like some of those markets. So that's kind of where we have our eye right now. And
Yeah.
ultimately, we're looking for a couple of things. We are trying to make sure that we're investing in quality markets where there's going to be more demand in the future than there is today. And that's
Yeah.
really as simple as I want to put it. We're just trying to figure out, hey, will more people want to live here and pay higher rents 5 years from now than the rents are today? That's really the only thing we're really trying to pay attention to. And if
Right.
the answer is yes, then we'll explore opportunities there that as long as they fit kind of our criteria.
Yeah. No, that's that's a really simple way to look at it. Yeah, I like that. All right, man. Let's go ahead and transition to the next segment of the show. It's a deal deep dive. So let's talk about a deal that that you've completed. Maybe it was one that you've recently done, or maybe it's one that was full cycle. Let's talk about a deal you did. What was it that you liked about it? How many units, value add, all that, man.
Yeah, man. So they say people learn more from failures than from successes. So
Right.
um, I'd love to talk about one of my, a favorite deal, but it may be more beneficial to the audience to talk about one of my trouble deals. I'll let you pick which
Yeah.
one you want to go with.
Well, let's go with the trouble deal, man. It's always
Oh
good
man,
to
I was
learn.
really hoping you didn't say that, but okay. All right. So we bought a deal. It's a smaller deal. It's 28 units, smaller for our portfolio. It's 28 units here in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And when we ran the numbers, we really, really were ecstatic about this opportunity. We had been looking at deals in this market for probably 18 months. And this is the first one where the numbers penciled out.
Yeah.
And we got really excited. We wanted to make sure we weren't missing something. But, I put in an offer. I had my sister shoot over and just like walk the property, FaceTime me, make sure like, hey, there's
Right.
nothing glaring that I'm missing, right? Got it under contract. I came down, did the inspection, and we kind of knew what the challenges were. We had a
Yeah.
great business plan. We made a couple of mistakes though. So, and we could talk numbers too if you want to get into numbers.
Yeah.
But from a high level business plan standpoint, we knew that we needed to reposition the tenant base. So we came
Yeah.
into this saying, hey, you know what? The police are getting called frequently. Even when we were there, the property manager, the
Right.
on-site property manager got the police called on her husband. You know what I mean? Like we were at 9:30 in the morning, by the way.
Oh,
It's 9:30 in the morning and the police are there. And I'm like, yo, who gets the police called at 9:30? And then I found out she was the
right.
property manager. And I was like, yo, if the property manager is getting
That's
police called,
crazy.
I can only imagine what the rest of the tenant base is like, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I I was very concerned, as you can expect, and
Yeah.
but we ran our numbers and we talked to the police department. I got a full report sent to me. So due diligence wise, I mean, we I felt really good with the way we approached the due diligence. Not the only, the mistake we made was we underestimated what effort it would take to reposition the tenant base. I thought it was just the residents that had the police issues. So we
Right.
focused on, hey, the top, 20% of people who have police issues, let's get them out within the first 30 days.
Right.
And then we'll just, we'll slowly turn other units as they come up.
Yeah.
What we found was there was a cultural issue throughout the
Mm.
entire property. I mean, we had residents that were throwing trash over the balcony. It was just also just
Yeah.
even without the criminal behavior, these
Right.
were not people you wanted as your neighbor.
Right.
And that was the thing that we kind of underestimated. So we
Yeah.
made a business choice that I regret now, but I learned my lesson to
Yeah.
take the building basically down to, 7 out of the 28 units vacant or occupied.
Right.
So we took 21 units and vacated them.
Wow.
And what ended up happening at the same time, just terrible, terrible timing. The contractor that we hired and we were working with to make the renovations, we ran into some issues with him and had to ended up, filing a police complaint. He stole some money. So I
Wow.
got 21 units vacant and, the contractor ran off with my money and, we're in this standstill. And by the way, now the city officials came in and told me all the other stuff I was going to have to fix with the property that we had not budgeted for.
Yeah.
So a lot of lessons learned there, a lot of challenges that we had to overcome. I'll fast forward because this does have a happy ending, right? And this is the beauty
Yeah.
of commercial multifamily. Ultimately, we ended up, overcoming some of those challenges.
Yeah.
Right now, the property is stabilized. We're actually going to get rid and we're looking to eclipse what we even projected. So after about a 3-year hold, we're going to eclipse what our exit projection was for a 5-year hold,
Yeah.
and probably by a decent amount too, because the area has continued to appreciate and it still is a really strong sub market. And ultimately, we know that cap rates have compressed as well. So we're
Yeah.
probably going to do really well with this deal, even though we even overinvested what we anticipated and it took a lot longer than we
Right.
anticipated. And there are a couple lessons that I want people to take away. And I know I mentioned numbers, so I'll share some of those in a second. One is this, never underestimate the amount of capital you need up front. Make
Yeah.
sure you have proper reserves, make sure you have a little bit more money for renovations, and just understand your business plan. Make sure the numbers support your business plan. If you know you need to reposition, have a healthy reserve set up. That way, if you have to go light on occupancy, you've got some extra money to cover any bills and expenses there. Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't have as much of that up front, so I ended up having to pay out of my own pocket to
Right.
to keep the bills going, and it took a lot longer than I anticipated. Okay.
Yeah.
The second thing is with your team, just make sure you have the right processes on when you pay people out. We were paying people, and we actually had a good process. It's just we had a breakdown in getting our signatures. So there's something that's called I forget what you call it now. Lien. It's a lien waiver.
Yeah.
So, there's lien waivers from the contractor. So he signed the lien waiver that his subs have been paid, but he hadn't actually paid his
Yeah.
subs. So we found out when the roofer called me and said, "Hey, if I don't get my money, I'm putting a lien." I'm like, "Dude, what you talking about? I just paid
Right.
this dude and he signed a lien waiver." So we've had
Right.
to revise our processes there, right? So make sure you're working with quality, reputable contractors. Make sure you're getting those lien waivers and you're getting confirmation that people have been paid and
Yeah.
you're controlling that process. And then the third thing is make sure you, and this is the thing we did great, make sure you are investing in a great sub market and your business plan reflects that sub market. The saving grace for us was really simple. We picked a sub market where there was growth. We talked about finding the path of progress early on. We found the path of progress. I love the sub market, and we were able to invest in an area that was seeing great growth. So because of that, even with the issues we were facing, we knew if we could recruit a higher quality resident base, they'd be willing to pay more in rent. They'd be willing to, respect and have nicer quality. They'd have higher credit scores, easier residents to manage, less wear and tear on the property,
Yeah.
and it would be more attractive for us as well as a future owner. So that's kind of the position we're in now, where we have a great quality resident base that we can position to a new owner. So just make sure you understand that and you have a business plan that supports what it is you're looking to do. But a number of wise, we bought that for, what do we buy that for? Geez, 728, I want to say. I think
Yeah.
we initially planned on putting 200,000 into it. I ended up investing a lot more more than that
Right.
over the time. I don't know, maybe 350 or something like that.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to list this thing for like 1.5 or 1.6.
Yeah.
Probably in the springtime. So
Yeah.
we'll clear a decent amount, less than I was hoping, but
Yeah.
actually around the same amount, because what I think we initially thought we would sell at 1.2.
Yeah.
So we're now looking at maybe listing in between 1.5 and 1.6.
Yeah.
So if we're able to hit that number, we'll pocket a few $100,000. So it'd be a nice
Yeah.
payout. But it comes down to be conservative in your projections as well, because again, I underwrote this with an exit of 1.1, 1.2,
Right.
hoping I could get more, but not planning on it.
Yeah.
And now we're in a position where 2 years short of our exit plan, we
Yeah.
may be able to get 1.5, 1.6. So, it just helps to be conservative. And obviously the one mistake or the one thing I would do differently is make sure we were more well capitalized up front.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very, very good advice. Now when you say well capitalized, are you saying 10% more than you need in your projections? I mean, what are you thought? What are the thoughts, I guess, for a rule of thumb there?
Yeah, it's tough to say, right? Because I don't want to say something and have people run, going,
Yeah.
"Oh, John said," So
Right. Right.
here's what I would say: it should reflect the business plan.
Yeah.
If you're doing any kind of renovations, you need reserves. So
Yeah.
whatever you have for your renovation budget, keep that, but then have reserves, and that could be anywhere from 3% of your expenses to 12 months of debt service. Like you
Yeah.
can pick the number, but I would make sure you had enough reserves at least to cover 3 months of
Yeah.
operational expenses. Okay. So I think that helps there. And again, if you are going to be kicking people out or doing any heavy turn like that, the heavier that renovation plan, the more money you probably want to have just sitting in the bank
Right.
account.
Right.
If your plan is, hey, you know what, just when people leave, we're gonna redo leases, which was our plan. That's why we didn't go in with heavy
Yeah.
reserves. Our plan was just, hey, we'll kick out these 4 or 5, but after that, it's just gonna be when people leave. We
Right.
pivoted our plan and we talked to our investors and made sure everybody was on board and knew what that meant.
Yeah.
So everybody agreed. So we decided to basically rip the band-aid off because it was clear that if we were to put new residents in
Yeah.
next to the current residents, they would be gone like within 2 months. They'd be like, I'm not
Right.
living here. So
Right.
it was a miscalculation on our part. But yeah, I would just say make sure you have some money set aside based on the business plan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have if people are interested in just like seeing some real numbers, I have a sample deal on our website,
Yeah.
and it can give you a little bit more context, at least the way we think about our deals, the way we do our deal structure. We do some coaching as well to help people who are looking to be active, and then obviously we work with investors on our
Yeah.
deals as well. But you can go to casmoncapital.com/sample deal if you want to take a look at that deal package and start getting a better sense of the numbers and kind of how they work together as far as reserves and some of those things.
Yeah, yeah, good deal, good deal. Appreciate that. All right, man. Let's go ahead and transition to the last segment of the show. It's a lightning round. Couple questions for you. Ready to go?
I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
All right. What's the best advice you ever been given?
Man, ask yourself, how can I? And whatever your situation is, whatever problems you facing, whatever challenges, just ask yourself, how can I do this? Even if it's something that seems insurmountable, how can I accomplish this insurmountable thing? And that will force your brain into the solution finding mode as opposed to the woe was me mentality. And so asking
Yeah.
yourself, how can I, is a major advantage when it comes to finding solutions and kind of getting out of your own skin and just making something happen.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. What's the best book you read in the last 12 months?
Oh man, 12 months. I've read a lot of good books in the last 12 months. Can I give like two or three?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, man.
All right. Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's my number one. It's just a phenomenal book on the small daily things we do every day that
Yeah.
can make a big habit of becoming the people we want to be. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. You want some motivation for that ass, man. I don't know if I can say that on your show, but
Yeah. Yeah.
David he's a beast, man. I mean, he's just the mentality there is crazy. And he's like that on social media too, but it's a great book. I really
Yeah.
recommend the Audible or the audio book because he
Yeah.
does additional commentary after every chapter and gives
Yeah.
more context. And it's long. It's like 12, 13 hours, but it's good.
Wow.
It's real
Gotcha.
good. So check that one out. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Cool. Cool. What is the one thing you're focusing on right now to help you improve your business?
I'm really focusing on being more intentional with my mornings. So right now I'm waking up at 6. I'm trying to push that up to 5:30 and just trying to make the most of the first 2 hours of the day. Right now
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with it, but just trying to get even more efficient, just really morning to night. So recapping my day at night, planning through what I want to accomplish in the morning
Yeah.
before I go to sleep. So just, from the time I close my eyes to wake up, I already had a game plan set. So the
Yeah.
days I'm able to do that, I see we're way more productive than the days where I just, wake up and then I start thinking about, the day. So just trying to be more particular and efficient with my night to morning transitions.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Last question. If you can give your younger self one tip in regards to investing, what would that be?
Think big. Think big. You will never regret thinking big and asking yourself, how can I? If you do those two things, the
Yeah.
world opens up. And you may not like the answer sometimes, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But if you think big, and I'm dead serious, ask yourself, how can I buy 100-unit apartment building? How can I acquire 1,000 units this year? You may not like the answers and
Yeah.
you may not even want to do it, but at least you open yourself up to the perspective and the options that are on the table. But if
Yeah.
you just say, hey, I just want to get a 3-unit, that's fine. I'm not knocking it, man. It's just the way I built mine: 2 units, 3 units, 8 units. But if I could have told that young dude, hey, man, ask yourself, how can you go get 1,000 units?
Yeah.
We would have been light years ahead of where we're at, just because of the effort and the mindset it would have taken to deliver that. So just
Right.
believe in yourself, and more importantly, just ask yourself the right questions and the right answers will present themselves.
Man, that's great. That's great. All right, man. That's the end of the show, John. Tell my listeners, how can they reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Absolutely, man. Listen, if anybody wants to learn more about investing, whether you're interested in being an active investor and raising money for your deal, or you're interested in being passive and want to check out some of the opportunities we have, go to our website. You can go to casmoncapital.com. We have a sample deal package on the website. And then we also have our new investor forum. So you can join our investor list as well if you're ready to take a look at some of the opportunities we have available. Outside of that, you've already mentioned my podcast. So Target Market Insights, the Multifamily and Marketing Show, is available wherever you listen to this, unless they're on your website. But if you're listening on Apple,
Right.
Spotify, our show is there. So you can just search that, find me, and subscribe to the show there.
Good deal, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on, dropping all the gold nuggets, man. There's a lot of good stuff in the show.
Absolutely, man. Will, thank you for having me on, man. I hope it was an absolute pleasure talking to you and your audience today. And I hope people got great value out of this. And if you got great value, leave my man Will that 5-star rating and review, and make
Oh,
sure you
yeah.
subscribe. All right.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Good deal, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Generational Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate podcast, brought to you by Onyx Capital Investments. Onyx Capital Investments works with investors nationwide to invest in income-producing real estate in emerging markets. Connect online at www.onyxcapitalinvestments.com to learn more about what we're doing. If we have added value to your life, please leave us a review.